everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomeSale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video. This week we're going to ask the question of should I value my house with price per square foot? So with several of the other pricing videos we've done, the quick answer is no. But obviously we're not just going to leave it at that. So first off, let's just discuss exactly what price per square foot is. Simply put, you take the price of a sold property or a number of sold properties and you divide it by the total square footage, and then you get a price per square foot, which you can use to value other properties by taking that number and multiplying by the total square footage of that property. So why did I say it's not a good method? So the problem is, first, what price per square foot are you using? Are you using all of the houses sold in an entire town for some amount of time? Are you using just the houses sold like in a certain area near the house that you're trying to value? Are you using all of the houses of a certain size, like you have a 3-bedroom house, you're using all the 3-bedroom houses? Are you using just those 3-bedroom houses in a small area? So there's on and on and on. Like, first of all, you just got to know which numbers you're using. So each one of the ones I said got a little bit better, but they still don't account for everything. So price per square foot generally is not going to account for location. It's not going to account for things like the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms. It's not going to account for the condition of the house, the level of the finishes, if there's stuff like a garage, like the driveway, how big the lot is, if there are extenuating circumstances like some of the houses, so maybe your house is on a busy street but these other houses aren't, all those kind of things. So there's a lot of adjusting that has to go into making it a useful, giving any kind of useful information. So beyond that, so really the only thing it does adjust for is for the square footage, which ironically, one of the problems with it is even when you adjust for everything else, it really only works well if the houses are of a very similar square footage to begin with. Price per square foot is always going to be higher, so always, that's too strong of a word, but in general, when most other things are similar, so if you have the same town in the same general area and you have two places that have similar finishes, good condition, more or less the same kind of stuff, they both have granite or they both just have laminate type things, but not one or the other, that kind of thing. The small place is pretty much always going to sell for a higher per square foot number than the bigger place, even though if the bigger place might be, nicer, more desirable because it's bigger and has more stuff. So, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 900 square foot house with really nice finishes is going to sell more per square foot than a 2,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in the same area with similar finishes pretty much always. The other house, obviously the bigger house is going to fetch a lot more money and be a lot more desirable because, a family could live there versus, not as many families want to live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. Yeah, it happens, obviously, but it's not as desirable for that reason. So it actually only works when the places are pretty similar in size to begin with, so even the one thing it adjusts for is square footage, and it doesn't adjust for that very well. There are a few situations where it can be useful. One would be, say, you're a developer and you want to build a subdivision of, some number of houses, and they're all going to be of, one basic style. And right next door, you or another developer had a tract of land that they recently developed a few months earlier and just have been selling off all of those units. They're going to more or less be the same style of house that you're going to do, but say that they are 2,400 square foot houses, and you're going to build 2,500 square foot houses. That, again, basically the same location, you're going to make it the same level of finishes, it's new construction, like I said, same basic area and all that kind of stuff. with the only difference being about 100 square feet difference, but they're going to have the same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, same number of total rooms, just a couple of rooms might be slightly larger. In that situation, yeah, you can probably use price per square foot to give a pretty good idea of how much more the slightly bigger houses will be worth. Something like that. Another situation is one that we actually have is we own a condo as a rental in a complex, 80, 90 units, I don't remember exactly. And there's a couple different styles, but what's important for this is there's 2 different unit sizes for the 2-bedroom, 1-bath units. We have one. We have the big one, which is 686 square feet. And there are some smaller ones, which are, I don't remember exactly, but like 650 square feet, roughly, give or take. So that's a pretty small difference, only in like the 5% kind of range, 30, 40 total square feet. So if I was trying to value my apartment and say none of the ones of my size have recently sold, but there were 3 or 4 of the other ones that did, if they're all of the same condition, so you still have to be careful of that, but if they're all more or less the same condition and the same level of finishes, being that it's a condo in the same building, or there's a couple buildings, but in the same complex, locations the same, the amenities are the same, the management and fees and all that kind of stuff are going to more or less be the same. So I don't have to adjust for any of that. So really, as long as the condition is similar and finishes are similar, the only thing I have to adjust for is square footage anyway. So in that case, again, sort of like the thing with the developer, the small difference in square feet can probably be adjusted by finding the price per square foot of those slightly smaller units and applying that little bit of difference to mine. But that's, again, it's a very, very small sliver of potential opportunities where it's in any way useful. And again, even with that, I have to emphasize it only works if if the condition and finishes are more or less the same in all of them. So beyond that, there's not too many reasons where it's going to be useful. Like I said, there's so many factors that go into valuing a house that if you don't only use places that have the same, very similar attributes in all of these ranges, it's just not going to be that useful. So similar to last week when we talked about assessed values, and a while back when we talked about Zestimates from Zillow, this is just another common and easy way for people to try to value a property that's just not really that good. So really the only good way to do it is to make adjustments of sold comps where you take into account all of these different variables that we talked about and try to come up with a value. Still more of an art than a science, but you can get a much better idea if you use these real hard numbers and go through a much more rigorous analysis to try to figure it out. The problem with all the things that we mentioned before is they're just easy. So if they're easy, they're generally not that good. Because anybody can go online and look at his estimate. Anybody can go and look up the assessed value of a house. It's not that hard. The math involved with figuring out price per square foot is very early elementary school. You get what you pay for in that regard. So to sum up, like I said, all the value propositions we've talked about so far are not very good. Price per square foot isn't any better than the other ones. Like I said, there can be a kernel of usefulness in any of them. Price per square foot, slightly more than some of the other ones because you do have the very small, subsection of situations where it can give you some useful information and actually be able to give you a reasonable value. But for the most part, it's not a very good one. So if you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. If there's something you'd like to see addressed in a future video, leave a comment below, fill out a form on the website. You can always post something on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, or send an email to info@masshomesale.com. And until next week, have a great week, and I will talk to you then. Bye-bye.